So when you complete your CFC form, remember, AFA's number is 12037. And thank you for your help.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. President Trump says NATO members will increase their contributions to 5%. Speaking at the NATO summit at The Hague, Trump said for too long, the United States has held up the organization financially, and that's about to change.
And all of this is going to be done very quickly, almost immediately. In a very historic milestone this week, the NATO allies committed to dramatically increase their defense spending to that 5% of GDP, something that no one really thought possible. And they said, "You did it, sir, you did it." Well, I don't know if I did it, but I think I did. This will be known as the Hague Defense Commitment. When the allies reach this number, it will add more than $1 trillion a year to our common defense, and this is a monument really to victory, but it's a monumental win for the United States because we were carrying much more than our fair share.
After the U.S. struck 3 major Iranian nuclear sites Sunday, a new report suggests the damage has only set Iran's nuclear program back by a few months. That's based on a leaked U.S. intelligence report cited by CNN and the New York Times. President Trump is attacking CNN, saying their coverage of the U.S. strike in Iran was dishonest and unfair, describing the network this way.
You're gutless losers. I say that to CNN because I watch it. I have no choice. I got to watch that garbage. It's all garbage. It's all fake news. But I think CNN is a gutless group of people.
Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz agrees with the president and says CNN and MSNBC are an extension of the Democratic Party in Washington.
We just saw an incredible military strike that successfully took out Iran's nuclear weapons capability. And what are the Democrats doing this week? They're voting on trying to disapprove President Trump defending America.
Israel and Iran have agreed to a ceasefire after a 12-day battle ended with a U.S. intervention. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee says the president says what he means.
America is only as good as its word. And sometimes our word has been dirt. With Donald Trump, our word, it means something. And so when we say this is what the red line is, and President Trump articulates that, the world can understand.
A shareholder activist group is not giving up efforts to raise concern about MasterCard and DEI. Chris Woodward has more.
The Free Enterprise Project at the National Center for Public Policy Research identified what it calls 3 ways in which MasterCard appears to still practice what seems to be straight-up illegal affirmative action. Stefan Padfield of the Free Enterprise Project.
So funneling money to individuals on the basis of race, that money being basically the assets of shareholders, promoting people on the basis of race, and so on. So we filed this proposal asking them to assess the risks of that conduct, and that's what we took to a vote.
The proposal lost, but Padfield says a pro-DEI proposal also failed to get enough support.
The reason that's so important is because a lot of the pro-DEI activists will take a loss on our part with one of these anti-DEI proposals and run around saying shareholders love DEI. But they really can't do that, although they still will. But they can't do it if both the pro-DEI and the anti-DEI proposal lost by over 90%, which is most likely what happened in this case.
Padfield says people everywhere should be concerned about MasterCard. This could include people with investments and even those that use one of MasterCard's competitors. AFN is seeking comment from MasterCard. I'm Chris Woodward.
And finally, high temperatures continue today for the eastern U.S., but not for much longer.
The extremely dangerous heat hangs on for one more day after shattering records yesterday, especially across the Northeast. Temperatures will begin to relax on Thursday, especially for the Midwest and the East Coast. The cold front helping to break the heat will bring the risk of stronger storms and heavy rain for sections of the Midwest, the upper Mississippi Valley, and the Great Lakes region. And there are flooding concerns for parts of the Southwest and the Plains today. Fox Weather has all of your latest details. I'm Janice Dean. Fox News.
There's more news online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
President Trump made it clear the government will not go along with the woke agenda. Sadly, the gender radicals have intensified their attacks on our families. Would you sign the petition urging President Trump to stand strong in his resolution to stop the LGBTQ agenda in the government and in America? And please, consider a gift to keep AFA Action in the fight. To thank you for that gift, we'll send you the DVD in his image. Visit afaaction.net today. afaaction.net.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on this Wednesday, June the 25th, 2025. Thank you for listening to AFR. And joining me in studio today is Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Brother Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
And Wesley Wildman.
And good morning.
And Chris Woodward.
Hello.
And we thank you again for listening. A lot to talk about, a lot in the news. It's a good thing because this show would not exist had we have news to talk. I guess we could gardening tips or.
Well, I mean, if we didn't have issues, what we couldn't have today's issues.
Right.
Got to be some issues somewhere.
That would be a good promo for our show.
Yeah.
In fact, we could clip that up.
Yeah.
Yes.
If we didn't have issues, we wouldn't have today's issues to talk about.
Now
you could have tomorrow's issues, but you'd have to wait until tomorrow to deal with it.
I just know that this is the best we're going to be able to do today, and we are not.
Have a good day, everybody.
We're not. One thing we can promise you, we're not going to go over our personal issues. Okay.
Right. I personally have issues, but that's not what I was talking about.
Right. Right. You want to review those now?
Yeah,
I don't.
Pull up the couch or get
Right.
All right. Jenna Ellis will be joining us at the bottom of the hour. Jenna is a host of Jenna Ellis in the Morning right here each weekday on American Family Radio. And she's a constitutional lawyer. And she's going to, we're going to review a couple of things that have been in the news that are big news stories, namely the Supreme Court sided with President Trump and his administration 6-3 that if you're here illegally in the U.S. and you are deported, you don't necessarily get to choose where you're sent to. You may be sent to if you're a criminal, especially, you may be sent to like El Salvador or something like that. So that was a big ruling, and that came down a couple of days ago. We'll talk to Jenna about that. And also going to ask her the big news story, which we are so thankful for. It was heartening to see where these children in Florida were rescued and they were being trafficked, right?
Yes.
So we're going to talk to her about that. She's very familiar with that, too. How many children were there?
60 missing children have been rescued.
And did we mention sometime, I don't know about this week or last week, that there's like 340,000 children unaccounted for,
approximately
cross the border.
You mean that crossed the border
over the 4 years of the Biden administration?
Yeah,
and the federal government doesn't know where they are.
Okay, so that obviously goes against the whole narrative of these are families coming over,
right?
Because there was that image of parents being ripped away from their kids, but in many cases, and how many are missing?
Well, that's I don't remember who gave the statistic, but I remember reading it or hearing it that there were 340,000 children in this country who had crossed the border, and the government doesn't know where they are, where they went.
Yeah, and the point I was making is that if they came over with their parents,
right,
their parents would know where they are.
Yes,
so that's a big problem.
All right, what's the first news story, Chris?
Well, liberal news outlets.
All of them.
Yeah, many of them. CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, ABC.
Keep going.
They're all reporting that U.S. military strikes on 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities last weekend did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program and likely only set it back by months. This is according to what liberal news outlets are describing as an early U.S. intelligence assessment that was described by 7 people briefed on them. briefed on it. The assessment, which had not been previously reported, was produced by the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Pentagon's intelligence arm. So long story short, there are reports out today that the U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend did not do as much damage as President Trump told us it did.
How do they know? Well,
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Trump says...
Why I'm here.
Well, there's supposedly some leaks say that.
Yeah, it's leaks that have been briefed on this report that confirmed or spoke to CNN and other news outlets on anonymity or asked not to be identified. So that story is out there. To go with this story is some audio from the president himself, who says the leaked document does not or did not paint an accurate picture. Clip 2.
I believe it was total obliteration. I believe they didn't have a chance to get anything out because we acted fast. Well, the intelligence was very inconclusive. The intelligence says we don't know. It could have been very severe. That's what the intelligence says. So I guess that's correct. But I think we could take that we don't know. It was very severe. It was obliteration.
Trump also doubts that anything at Fordo and these other locations was saved. Clip 3.
I believe it was total obliteration. I believe they didn't have a chance to get anything out because we acted fast. If it would have taken 2 weeks, maybe, but it's very hard to remove that kind of material. I don't want to use an example of Hiroshima. I don't want to use an example of Nagasaki. But that was essentially the same thing. That ended that war. This ended that with a war.
Now, one thing that works for Trump here with this situation is, yeah, it's possible and perhaps even likely that we did not do as much damage as we were told. But we do also know that many of these news outlets reporting this hate Trump and find anything they can do to be anti-Trump.
Are you sure about that?
I am more 1,000%
You're making a big presumption right there. Huh?
So I reported as a news person. This outlet says this based on this information. He says it's not true. But, I mean, take it with a grain of salt if CNN says what Trump's telling you is not true.
Maybe Chris should, from now on, say the mainstream media is allegedly anti-Trump.
There you go.
Give them the benefit of the doubt.
So then would they be happy if they would have done more damage?
No,
That's a good question.
They want, if they could have their way, they would say President Trump flew the planes over there and he missed.
Yes, that's what
he
they're
hit
implying.
Pakistan.
Yes, but you see the point that I'm asking though.
Yeah.
Are you saying
they're like elated that maybe the damage wasn't done that was first reported?
Well, and
was that because he would get credit?
Listen, I've seen other reports that it was worse than that. Our damage that we did to the bombings of the B-2s was even more devastating than we really thought. So
and Israel is saying that that Trump's strikes set Iran's nuclear program back by years.
Okay, there you go. That's
and
all
if
I need
Israel
to know.
says it,
right?
Then
they're the ones with the most at stake here,
and perhaps the best intelligence agency in the world, as opposed to leaks from anonymous sources.
Right.
Who might have an axe to grind, or who might want to make Trump look as bad as possible.
If I were President Trump, I wouldn't even answer him on that. I would just say that's,
Here's one example of why you can take it with a grain of salt, what a news outlet says. For example, this is the headline from the Daily Beast. Trump rages through night over leak of humiliating Iran flop. I already know what you feel about, know.
Well, they bait Trump, too, and he falls for it.
You mean in terms of he'll respond? He will respond.
He will. Yeah, they bait him and they say, "Hey, you didn't take him out like you said you did." Oh yeah, I did. I obliterated him. It was the greatest, best ever in the world history. I mean, he can't help himself.
The fact of the matter is, nobody can know for sure because Iran's not going to let the International Atomic Energy Commission come and check it out.
That's right, yeah.
So they're the ones who started off, we're talking about Iran, saying, they hardly scratched the surface. There's nothing. You remember the video of the guy driving down the highway saying there's nothing. It didn't even touch. There's a little smoke in the distance. That's it. He is an utter failure, and that's when people started comparing him to Baghdad Bob.
Okay, listen. We don't know the full story here yet. I just know looking at the satellite imagery and hearing how powerful these weapons were, and Israel's comments that they did the job. I mean, what more do you really need to know? and as you say, how will we know the full extent of this till maybe a month from now or 2 months from now when more investigation can be done? But it's like the left-wing media in this country is like gleeful at anything that may hurt President Trump in the polls or internationally or anything. They just, the Trump derangement syndrome. Right. It is real. Okay.
Absolutely real.
They can't. He could walk on. What somebody said.
What he could do is deport illegal immigrants who are criminals, and they be disappointed about that.
Yeah, and try to get the criminals released and brought back.
They're doing that too. But somebody said
that goes to the point of an example of a real life example of.
Somebody said he could walk on water, and the media would say, "Look, Trump can't swim."
Yeah.
Huh? I mean, that's how bad it is. So listen, as I say, Trump falls for it sometimes, and especially when he's tired looking and gets angry and upset and he just lashes out. So I don't, I understand how that his feeling is on that. But let me ask you this. Another indication too of the effectiveness of the what's it called? Operation what?
Overnight Hammer? What was that? Midnight Hammer, yeah.
A Midnight Hammer. I remember the Midnight Special with Wolfman Jack. Do you remember that, Ed?
The Midnight Special with Wolfman Jack.
Don't you remember
yes,
that?
I do remember that.
Wesley and Chris are looking at us like, what in the world are y'all talking about? Anyway,
Wolfman.
The Wolfman. But this was called Operation Midnight Hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so another indication of the effectiveness of it is the truce, or the, what do you call it?
Ceasefire?
Ceasefire. Has that held now for 24, 48 hours?
It's still holding, but we're kind of on the edge of our seat to see whether or not. I mean, it's definitely fragile. That's the term we use in our headline today. Fragile ceasefire.
And let me just add another thing, too, to this discussion. Trump has said, I think it was yesterday, he said, we'll do it again.
Mm-hmm.
If
they start rebuilding?
If they start to rebuild the nuclear program, we'll just bomb it again. And they're not going to wait for them to build it, whatever it is, a mile underground, or it's not quite that far.
All right, I want to see. I just want to see if Iran sends weapons again, tries to attack Israel again. If they try to attack Israel again, which I don't think they're going to do, okay, because of the effort that they put into that bombing of the U.S. military base the other day in Qatar, like President Trump and some of the others, maybe the Qatar officials said Iran sent 4 or 5 drone missiles over there to our military base and called ahead and said, "Hey,
it's on the way.
It's on DoorDash."
12-hour heads up.
You'll see them coming on your Ring camera.
Drone Dash is on the way and be delivered in 2 hours.
Drone
12.
Was it 12-hour warning?
Yeah, 12-hour heads up.
That's a slow drone right there to go from Iran to Qatar and take 12 hours.
What they were wanting to happen is nothing to happen.
Batteries
right.
Well, as those missiles were coming down, one of the news outlets we had on in the newsroom said Iran hopes this de-escalates the situation. You just shot missiles.
Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is, I think had they had anything better that they could have done, or more that they could have done,
that's right,
Iran at the time, they would have. And this tells me if Iran does not send weapons, or by the way, we haven't even talked about they've got a real crisis in their government over there in Iran.
Yeah, they do.
In their leadership, because so many of their top lieutenants have been taken out by the Israelis and nuclear scientists, and it's really destabilized that country, and there's some of their infrastructure. So I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen exactly over there in Iran. They got 90 million people, something like that. Roughly. What is that? Iran. Look up population of Iran, and see what it says. See if Brother Tim's halfway right there.
They have 92,400,000.
Yeah, Brother Tim.
A little bit plus.
Wesley will buy you lunch.
My missile hit real close right there. Right? Am I right? So anyway, it's a big country and a lot of people, and you hear reports about, Christianity growing inside Iran, which we pray for, and you hear also reports about the people there. The average person over there doesn't want this Ayatollah Islamic regime ruling over them. They want more freedom, more westernization. So, but how do you? But the problem is the mullahs and the ayatollahs. They've got control of the police and the military.
Right.
So they can, like any
they'd
dictatorship,
have to turn against the mullahs.
It could happen. It's happened in history. We'll see.
Well, it happened with the overthrow of the Shah of Iran.
In reverse.
Because the Shah had a pretty solid nationalized police force that were a terror to the people.
Right.
There was a lot of oppression, a lot of corruption. There was an attempt to.
But he was our dictator.
But he was our dictator. That's exactly that. You kind of say that with tongue in cheek, but it's absolutely true.
Right.
We're opposed to dictators unless they are friendly to us.
Yeah,
that has happened all over Latin America, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Sometimes you got to work.
Some people say we should have left Saddam Hussein in charge. In Iraq.
Yeah. Okay, Some people say the devil is better than the devil you don't.
Yeah.
And so it could flip again, and they could go back to freedom, and that's my prayer.
But you don't support any devil.
I support no devil. Yeah.
No
More than point. Theologically, we support no devils.
Yeah, that was metaphorically.
Yes.
Not theologically.
Right.
There is another Trump story here that we actually have on our website as well, afn.net, and it could very well be a victory for President Trump for something he pushed for during his first term in office 8 years ago. Trump has said for years that NATO members need to pay more. They need to pay more. The U.S. is responsible for a lot of NATO. Other members need to start paying up and helping cover the cost here.
Yeah.
In a story on our website, afn.net, NATO members are poised to enact one of Trump's chief priorities for NATO, a pledge by its member countries to increase, sometimes significantly, how much they spend on their defense. I have some audio from the president himself here, Donald Trump, talking about this.
Is he at G7 now?
He's at the NATO summit. He's been meeting with NATO members.
Okay, G7 was 2 weeks ago.
He left G7 early to deal with Iran.
Okay, so what we're about to hear is President Trump commenting at the NATO meeting.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
About how they're going to pay more.
Okay,
Clip one.
go ahead.
We're with them all the way. I mean, if you take a look at the numbers, we're with them, and they have very big things to announce today. I don't know if you've taken the vote or you're going to take the vote, but I've been asking them to go up to 5% for a number of years, and they're going up to 5%. That's a big, from 2%. And a lot of people didn't even pay the 2%. So I think it's going to be very big news. NATO is going to become very strong with us, and I appreciate doing it.
Now, I don't know which NATO countries, but it says most NATO countries, with the exception of Spain, are preparing to pitch in.
I know most people understand this issue, but let me just dumb it down a little bit here. So NATO was created after World War II.
After World War II.
It's called the North Atlantic Treaty Organization?
Yes.
Okay, NATO. And what it was created for was to be a deterrent against the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, which doesn't exist anymore. So thus we ended into what's called the Cold War between basically the United States, which is a part of NATO, and the Soviet Union. We all know that story. So since then, the United States of America we've been carrying all the water, so to speak, the cost and everything for maintaining our military presence in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So, especially what's formerly called Western Europe today. So, President Trump has been trying to get these countries, albeit they're smaller, to pay a certain percentage of their budget to go to their military, so that they will be, it would be a true partnership instead of getting to ride free off the back of the United States. Is that basically, if I basically got it right here?
Yeah, and part of the by the way, NATO, the NATO countries that you mentioned in Western Europe were a counterweight to the countries that the Soviet Union kept after World War II. They drove the Nazis back into Germany and were approaching Berlin from the east, and then all those countries they took back from. Took out of Nazi Germany's hands, the Soviet Union kept them.
And thus they became the Soviet Union.
Well, the Soviet Union was separate, but then these countries like Poland, East Germany, Hungary, all these, they became what was known as the Warsaw Pact.
Right.
So you had the U.S. against the Soviet, balancing against the Soviet Union, NATO, Western European countries balance against Eastern European countries. And I think that NATO has become more willing to up their expenditures to 5%. Again, the exception of Spain, and I'm not sure if everyone's going up to 5%. But because of what Russia did in attacking Ukraine.
Right.
I think NATO realizes they've got to up their game so that if something else happens, they would be ready.
All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. So President Trump is in, where are they having this meeting?
It's in Western Europe, Brussels, the Netherlands, that part of the world.
Okay. Anyway, he's over there for the NATO, was that in a couple days, and then he's back here?
Yes.
President Trump's 79. He'll be 79 in June, I think. Do you know that?
He just had a birthday on the 14th.
He's 79.
Oh, this is June. Okay. He's 79. Look it up. I think I'm right about that. I was right about 90 million Iranians.
Let's see. You might be just good at numbers. President Trump is...
This math teacher would have disagreed with that.
See if I'm not right. I think
he's 79 years old. June 14th is his birthday.
Memory and guessing is what he's good at.
You didn't send your card?
What are you talking about?
His birthday card?
President Trump.
June 14th.
I did a month ago.
He's 79 years old, just turned 79.
He shares a birthday with Flag Day.
That's true.
That's right. They had a military parade on his birthday.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
because it was also the 250th anniversary of the creation of the U.S. Army.
I already look 79 with my gray hair. So if Donald Trump lives for like another 2 or 3 decades, I'm going to start drinking Diet Coke and eating French fries. Because there's apparently something to that.
There's no better time to start doing that than now, Chris.
Let me ask you this. This is no comment on President Trump's mental ability to do his job, because I think he's doing just fine. Okay. But he's starting to look his age, okay, a little bit in terms of, he's 79 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, most people have been retired.
Yes.
For like 10 years or something like that. And he is like a freak of nature. We mentioned that before. And as Chris mentioned, Wesley, he gets by on
Big Macs.
He has a Big Mac fry. And what does he like to drink?
I think it's Coke.
He's got a
Diet Coke.
Yeah.
Is it Coke or Diet Coke?
It's a Coke product.
He's got a Diet Coke button in the Oval Office.
But I'm saying that his shoulders are more slumped than they were. This happens to everybody. I'm not being critical. I'm just saying that he's a little bit slower in his walk. And, what's the old saying, Father Time waits on no man? Mm-hmm. So, and he's waited a long time on Donald Trump. I'm just saying, I hope he holds up physically and mentally to the challenge that he has.
And that's a real concern. It could happen pretty quick.
That's why you have vice presidents, right?
That's
right.
Yep, it could happen pretty quick with someone of his age, but in the meantime, we're going to keep...
I'm not saying it's anywhere near...
But that wouldn't surprise us.
Near there.
I'm just saying
that you just start wondering, okay, how much longer is this fella going to be able to hold up to the daily pressures?
Especially at the level he's doing it at that age. It's kind of like you start anticipating it.
The strain, even for young guys. Remember Barack Obama?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
President Obama, he aged in those 8 years.
Right.
And that's for a relatively young guy.
George W. Bush had brown hair when he entered office. Yeah.
We'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
There was this young boy once. He loved to draw. He'd take a pencil and a piece of paper and he'd draw anything around him that caught his fancy. Once that young boy was asked to draw a picture of a horse by an elderly gentleman. When he'd finished with the drawing, the gentleman was so pleased with the boy's work that he gave him a whole $1. Now that was back when $1 was $1. That seemed to spur the youngster on. He kept drawing. He worked at it. He loved it. He gave himself to it. Soon he had landed himself a job with a newspaper as a cartoonist. Now he was real proud of himself when he got that job. But while he thought it was something to get excited about, one of his superiors didn't see it that way. The editor of the paper where he worked in Kansas City called him in one day, said he wanted to talk to him about his future. He was quite frank with the young cartoonist about his job and about his future, and he said to him, "You don't have any talent. Why don't you get out of the drawing business and into something where you have a chance to succeed?" Well, the young fellow thought it over, gave some serious consideration to doing just that, quitting his drawing and going into another line of business, for he did, like most of us, he did want to be a success. And the editor should have known something about talent, he thought. But after considerable thought, he decided to stay in the drawing business even if he didn't have any talent. You'll find people like that occasionally, people who won't quit, people who won't give up, even if others think they're doomed to failure. No one has ever found the magic formula that separates those who refuse to quit from those who give up at the first setback. A lot of time, however, it can be nothing more than the Spirit of God driving them on. For sometimes there's not a single person in this whole world who believes in us other than Him. That's one of His traits. He believes in us even when no one else does. He believes in us even when we don't believe in ourselves. That's what made Him face that ugly cross. He believed in our goodness when we displayed our sinfulness. He never gave up on us. He still is counting on us to this very day. He's disappointed a lot of times, but He never gives up. When everyone else has counted us out, He's still pulling for us. Oh, by the way, that young artist who had no talent but wouldn't quit, he went on to pretty great things. His name was Walt Disney. No one can remember the name of the Kansas City editor.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
The Lord looks down from heaven on all mankind to see if there are any who understand God, any who seek God. Psalm 14, verse 2.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and Chris. Today's Wednesday, June the 25th, 2025. 2025 is almost halfway over.
That's
hard to believe, isn't it?
Just blowing my mind.
Yeah.
You know what June 25th is, right?
What is it, Ed?
I don't know. I was hoping you knew.
6 months to Christmas.
Chris, hey, Chris got it. Is that the right answer?
Bingo.
I made it, Mom.
Is today some kind of holiday or something? We
No,
got so
I
many
was just-
federal holidays.
I just-
President Trump said the other day we got too many federal holidays. Need to get rid of some of them. I thought you're right about that.
But I bet he didn't give a list of the ones.
No, I don't think he did. But
I think we should have one federal holiday each month.
We
and
do.
I think AFA should have an official holiday with the federal holidays. Can you imagine if we did that? We'd be out. Our employees would be out half the year.
Yeah. Well, the federal government employees, they get every federal holiday.
Yeah, they sure do.
You guys ruin my Arbor Day plans every year by making me work.
Let me tell you.
Your
Arbor Day.
Arbor
Yeah.
Day.
Oh, how do you commemorate Arbor Day, Chris?
I plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
And then I read about
Just
the Great
one?
Society.
You got all day, and you plant one lousy tree, huh?
You know what? Can I just say something that'll probably get you in trouble
can.
at home?
Would you bless us?
My wife always loved Arbor Day, and she's on the Arbor Day Foundation, and she would order trees, and she would just plant them wherever, willy-nilly around the yard. And I'd have to eventually go and dig them up because they'd be too close to the house or to the foundation. And I would say, please stop. Let's just plant them in a place where they, can provide shade. But don't get so tall that in a strong breeze they collapse on your house. She doesn't listen to me.
No, well, I think this is where you use the expression, I know your heart's in the right place.
Yes,
that's exactly
but
right.
The trees ain't.
Yes, that's exactly right.
All right. So, anyway.
Bushes, trees, it wouldn't matter. She'd plant them right next to the house.
And then you have to mow around them.
Yeah, and then, okay, this and
I think
then
you
I'll be
probably
done.
need to stop right there.
She
You
planted
gotta go
these
home.
4 bushes right next to the house, and I was worried about the roots. And one Saturday morning, I said, I'm digging them up.
Yeah, they go.
And I thought I can get this done before lunch. And they were so deep. It took me 2 or 3 days to get those things up.
You didn't have like a bush bumper buster?
No, what you needed was to back your vehicle in there and tie it to it. And
A bush bunker buster is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, because those kind of things always go well for the
Right.
Battagliano family.
What's that?
But tying a bush to my bumper and then trying to pull it out.
I'm looking at a list of federal holidays, and there's only 11.
Really?
New Year's Day.
One for every month, as Ed said.
Pretty much. New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Day, Washington's birthday / President's Day, Memorial Day, Juneteenth. That's the new one. That came into effect when President Biden was in office. Independence Day, Labor Day, Columbus Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving Day, and Christmas Day. Now, Juneteenth, as I mentioned, is our newest holiday, but that involves something that happened at the end of the Civil War, so it does go back a long time.
If we add any more federal holidays, we need to take one away. That would be my
spending program.
That's what
The odds are the federal government is not giving up Labor Day because that is a nod back to the unions that helped put many people in power over the years.
All right. You're listening to today's issues on American Family Radio. Well, a big court decision happened a couple of days ago. We're going to talk about that regarding deportation of people here who are in the United States illegally. Joining us now to talk about that and other issues is Jenna Ellis. Jenna is host of Jenna Ellis in the Morning, heard on every weekday morning from 7 to 8 Central Time right here on American Family Radio. Hey, good morning, Jenna.
Good morning, and I think we should make today a holiday, and I'll just go home right now. Like, I'll just say bye and be like, it's the 2015th, you know.
Oh,
so
2015.
that's got to be something.
I know. What is today? 2025. Hey, some good news, great news actually, out of the state of Florida regarding these children. Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah, in the state of Florida. So this is great, and I just absolutely love our Attorney General, James Uthmeyer, who actually joined me on the program recently to talk about how he doesn't care that a federal judge is holding him in contempt for actually enforcing Florida and federal immigration law. And so now the headline is 60 missing kids are dramatically rescued in a covert human trafficking operation. And this is across multiple counties in Florida. And the kids aged 9 to 17 years old were all recovered from the Tampa Bay area in an operation led by the U.S. Marshal's Office for the Middle District of Florida. And this is yet another win for the free state of Florida that just shows our leadership. And I say our because, as listeners know, I'm a resident of Florida. This is my leadership. They just do what is right. I mean, this is in tandem with Governor DeSantis and Senator Jay Collins from Florida going actually. Senator Collins went to Israel and they chartered flights and got over 1,500 U.S. citizens, including Floridians, out of Israel during the Iran-Israel conflict. And these are things that they don't necessarily have to do, but when you have good leadership who knows the difference between right and wrong, good and evil, they step up and use their power to actually effectively help people. And this is exactly what the Bible talks about when it says that with good leadership, the people rejoice, and with evil leadership, the people groan.
Ed?
Yeah, Jenna, this was the result. By the way, this was a great thing that, as you mentioned, that Florida was able to do. And Attorney General Uthmeyer, is that how you pronounce it?
I think so. I've heard it several ways. That's how I pronounce it. So we'll go with that.
So a great thing to wake up to hear, to read about. But this is also horrifying because we're finding out that some of these children are girls who are pregnant. I mean, very, very young ages. And this is, as far as I could tell, the result of 4 years of the Biden administration's disastrous, catastrophic policy on just letting people flood into this country. Because from what I've read, there are hundreds of thousands of children that cross that border and nobody knows where they are. Don't know if they were trafficked, don't know if they wound up with parents or with family members or where they are. This was a disaster along the southern border, and 60 kids, praise God for that, but how many are still missing? Speak to the catastrophe that was the Biden administration's policy on the border.
Yeah, you're so right, Ed. And this just proves why the disastrous effects of one administration can linger and can continue on and affect so many people. So you not only have this instance, but you also have people who have committed violent crimes who have come over the border or have re-entered multiple times with the Biden administration. And this just goes back to the whole point that worldview matters. What you believe about nations and borders and the legitimacy of government matters, because with the Biden administration and Kamala Harris, who's then VP, and of course lost this last election, I mean, their whole globalist view of saying, well, diversity matters and we want to have multiculturalism, we don't want to have borders, we just want to thrive on DEI. These are the disastrous results because people who come in from other countries that are not Christian, that do not share our values, they don't assimilate here. They just bring in their worldview and their disastrous policies onto our shores. And for a government like the Biden administration to not appreciate that and not protect American citizens first, that is absolutely contrary to his oath of office. And that was something that for a long time, some Republicans were saying that he should be impeached over. And I think that there's a good case for that. But at the same time, this is why policy matters and elections matter so much.
All right, let me ask you this, changing the subject a little bit here, but still a constitutional question. You posted on X, I think, about whether President Trump or any president has the right to a military decision like we saw take place with the bombing of the nuclear sites there in Iran. So President Trump authorized these B-2s to fly around the world and drop bombs, massive bombs, and then come home. But some are saying, by the way, the impeachment idea that was a lead balloon.
Yeah.
Right there, but that some of the Democrats tried to float. But the question is, where do we draw the line, Jenna, on when a Congress needs to be involved in war efforts, and when the president, as commander-in-chief, has unilateral authority?
Yeah, and this is a great question and one that even some conservatives are asking. And I actually did an entire segment on my show yesterday for listeners. You can go to afr.net and you can click on the previous episodes. And I did a whole segment on this talking about the difference between declaring war and conducting a preemptive strike, because Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution says specifically that Congress holds the power to declare war, which is a formal, sustained state of conflict. But the commander-in-chief under Article 2 can use military force to protect national interests, and including preemptive self-defense. And so this is why the War Powers Act back in the 70s was passed by Congress, because there is this natural tension between a formal declaration of a sustained war versus military action that that a president can take unilaterally. He does have to inform Congress, and that was done in this case. Trump abided by that law of informing, but he doesn't have to get consent from Congress. And the courts generally have treated these type of issues as a political question and saying, well, if Congress doesn't like what the executive's doing, that's for the two branches to resolve politically. It's not necessarily a legal matter to adjudicate. So the courts have historically largely sidestepped these issues when some military members, for example, would sue under like an unauthorized war or an unauthorized action. And so they've basically stayed out of it. But the way that I read the Constitution, and most of I think that the conservative attorneys and constitutionalists would say there is a distinction between a formal declaration that we are at war and this is going to be sustained versus the War Powers Act, which says that as long as it's, a specific time frame under 90 days of conflict and it's for a specific strategic national interest or national security interest, the president has that authority because he can just obviously move more quickly to address something than Congress deliberating and having a formal declaration.
And by the way, the last time Congress formally declared war was World War II. So we call it the Korean War, but it technically was not the result of a declaration of war. Vietnam, all the things in the Middle East, Grenada, the use of military force has gone on a number of times since the last formal declaration of war. Let me just ask you this, Jenna. Do you think part of the reason why the president seems to have expanded powers to direct the military in warlike efforts is because, I don't know this is true. This is just my take on it. But when the founders established the country, the Constitution, that was back when Congress had to formally declare a war because Congress had to authorize the funds to execute the war effort. But now we have a standing Army, Air Force, Navy, we have the Coast Guard, all of that is already funded. And the president, as the commander in chief, simply decides with, letting Congress know we are going to use these war assets that you, Congress, have already paid for. We're going to use it in this way. Do you think that explains some of the reasons why presidents have used the military without a formal declaration?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I also think we live in a very different live response time environment in 2025 than we did in 1787 when the Constitution was ratified. And so it's not that the principle changes or that the Constitution's a living document, but the application of the powers that are given to the commander-in-chief naturally will look differently today than they did back then. I mean, it's the same thing as saying, the argument that, the founders, the First Amendment doesn't apply to your text messages or your social media posts. Well, yeah, it does. It just, the founders didn't contemplate the specific use or medium of technology with respect to the First Amendment, but it's all about free speech and government restraint on it. It doesn't depend on the medium. The same analogy is true for war powers and the responsiveness that is necessary from a U.S. president today when you have these long-range missiles that you have to make a decision in 30 seconds sometimes. Right. That's you can't possibly convene Congress and decide, well, what do we think about this? You have to be able to turn on a dime, and that's why we have some of these standing militaries. And so this all just goes to the fundamental rationale that the Constitution is all about powers that are limited, but the principle is really what we need to pay attention to as well.
This is Wesley here. I'm reading an article from Yahoo News from yesterday, and it says that U.S. President Barack Obama dropped more than 26,000 bombs on 7 countries: Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Pakistan, Somalia, Yemen, and Yemen in 2016 alone. So He did it, to my understanding, the way that you just described. Trump did the bombings in Iran at the nuclear site. So what is with the other side?
Are you noticing a double standard?
I'm getting it. I was going to get your comment.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. I was kind of picking up on this.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the letter after their name most of the time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just like with the impeachments of President Trump, the Democrats were saying, well, this is all political. We don't need a legal basis. There has to be a trial. And then as soon as Republicans impeached Homeland Secretary then Mayorkas, it was we're not going to have a trial. That's purely political. They don't have a legal basis. And it's like you can't argue both things, but they do, and they do because they are unmoored from principle. They just want the outcome in the moment. And this is why conservatives have to remain principled and demand that we are a nation of rules, not a nation of outcomes and preferences like the Democrats.
Yeah, with President Trump, there is this Trump derangement syndrome, as it's been called, and you once you completely lose your objectivity and you're just and then you say you're a journalist or you're a reporter or you're an analyst, but everything you do, you've basically lost your mind. Okay,
that's right.
To do the capability of doing your job correctly. So, listen, people.
That's how their numbers end up going down.
Right, when you have no credibility at all, you can't even give credit to somebody for something so obviously good. That's so. Then when you criticize or are critical of something that they do, you go, well, you're critical every day, all day of everything they do. So it doesn't matter. So I don't listen to you anymore. And they think that's what's happening with the liberal media. Let me ask you about one more. The Supreme Court, was it 2 days ago, Jenna? 6-3, they ruled in favor of the Trump administration in terms of the deportation.
Yes, and so this is also a really great story that, again, the Supreme Court is deferring to the Constitution, which is a very good thing, and they are allowing, at least for now, for Trump to continue to implement his policy related to mass deportations and his policy on immigration, because that is within his policy purview, and so they declined to temporarily restrain that, and so they overturned a woke federal judge to the contrary, and so this is a great thing for the U.S. and again, why elections matter, because if we had a different composition on the Supreme Court, I think we would see different outcomes, because we know that the very, very, very left-leaning judges on the bench, those three women, they prefer outcomes most of the time to any sort of semblance of principle. But this case was decided on principle in the Constitution, so that's a very good thing.
But they basically ruled that the ICE or the agencies and responsible for deportation can, if you're arrested and you're deported, you can go to anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Wherever we send them.
Yeah. And so hopefully this will encourage perhaps some people who are in the United States illegally to choose where they want to deport themselves.
Self-deport?
Yes, instead of having Tom Homan decide for them.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Jenna. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks, guys. Great to talk with you.
Bye-bye. That's Jenna Ellis joining us there.
Host of Jenna Ellis in the Morning. By the way, folks, that's heard weekdays at 7 a.m. Central Time on AFR. She also hosts the On-Demand podcast. You can find not only Jenna's podcast, but a host of podcasts at afr.net, afr.net. There's a little menu at the top. It says podcasts. You click on it. You'll see all the podcasts that are available. Just tons of solid
You listen to podcasts?
information. I do. I listen to a lot of podcasts, ours, others. Podcasts, it's kind of like going back and keeping your education going, because there's all sorts of great categories of podcasts that you can listen to, and boy, you just continue to learn. And I like
Wesley listen to podcasts.
Listen to podcasts and the long form podcast. So an hour and a half.
Wow.
And so, the reason for that is you can do it at your own convenience, and you can do multiple things at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, my wife doesn't believe I could do multiple things at the same time, but I prove it. I can mow the yard and put my earbuds in and listen to a podcast
at the same time.
And grow as a person while your grass is cut.
That's right.
Your grass goes down, you go up.
I go up.
Your knowledge goes up.
Yeah.
Hey, be sure to drink plenty of water today if you are going to cut your grass. And I say that because it's going to be a
good
hot
segue right
one.
there, Chris.
Yeah, but you hijacked
Good
it by
word.
don't emphasize it. It would just let it soak.
So, I mean, just to put things in like a perspective on how many people are dealing with a heat wave right now, there's approximately 340 million people in the United States of America. Over 170 million Americans are roasting today under a giant heat dome.
It's not just a heat wave. It's a heat dome.
It's a heat dome.
It's a heat dome.
It's like Thunderdome or something. It just sounds more ominous, doesn't it?
You know,
you expect Mad Max to come riding down the interstate.
We don't need another hero.
It feels like a sauna when you walk outside.
It does.
It's
for people that have never been blessed with the opportunity to visit us in the Deep South, pretty much when you step outside, it feels like you're in a giant body of hot water, but there's no hot water. You're literally like, it's boiling outside.
Well, now they're experiencing it
in the Northeast.
As far north as like Quebec City.
And this is the first time they said in decades that they've had this kind of heat. By the way, I do
like what is it? How oppressive? I mean, how bad?
Say
is it?
Northeast,
like 95 degrees?
No, it's in the hundreds.
Over 100 degrees in some parts of the U.S. and even.
I interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, you remember how this last winter I told you that I was tired of cold weather?
Yeah.
And I look forward to the summer. I don't care how hot it gets.
Yeah.
I changed my mind.
Well, go ahead, Wes.
Well, I was going to say with the heat wave here, what part? When you say northeast, how far and how high?
I mean, pretty much the Midwest through the northeastern part of the U.S.
New England.
And even into Canada.
Wow.
Now, in Quebec City, it's not going to be 100 degrees. Like right now, it's 71 in Quebec City. But, I mean, that's still getting pretty warm.
So
They
this
get no
afternoon when I get
sympathy
home
from me.
and my kids say, "Can we go fishing?" I'm going to say, "Can we wait till 7 or 8 maybe?"
Well, and by the way, that does affect heat does affect fishing, doesn't
Well,
it? Because the water heats up as well.
That may be true. I'm not that good at knowing the that type of thing as it relates to fishing. What I was referring to is that the 10 degrees cooler and the sun being behind the clouds or behind the trees makes a difference for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, you're right.
I went to Washington, D.C. in July, and it was.
I think I want to take this opportunity as a Southerner to look north to our friends in the north and the Northeast and say, because you're always making fun of us during winter.
Yeah.
No. You're always making fun of us during winter. You bunch of weenies down
That's
there.
right.
It gets down to 30, and you
shelter in place.
Or
shelter in place.
Inch of snow on the ground.
Inch of snow, and you call out the National Guard. I mean,
cancel.
So now it's our turn.
I like this, where this is going.
Now it's our turn to say,
fair.
You know what? You need to suck it up, Buttercup. Okay? All right? Because you got a little heat wave going on. I put heat wave in quotations, and everybody's freaking out saying stay in and do this and do that.
Drink your water, put sunscreen on.
Yeah. Well, welcome to our world every summer.
I visited, my dad and stepmom took me to Washington, D.C. in the early to mid-'90s, and it was the first time I'd ever been there. We went to Mount Vernon like a lot of people do when you're in D.C. I have no idea how the Founding Fathers did it without
air conditioning.
Because I toured Mount Vernon in like mid-July, and it was awful.
No, we all need to be thankful we were born during the air conditioning age. Huh?
Yeah.
Am I right?
You see pictures of people in the early 1900s sitting outside.
Wearing wool.
Oh, yeah.
And I just
there's no wonder now people used to sit on the porch all the time.
Yeah.
Huh?
And cold water, like, what would we do without ice water or cold water?
Or refrigerator. They used to. My dad tells stories about how they used to have the truck come by his neighborhood in Boston, the Boston area, to deliver ice for the ice box.
Yeah.
You put ice in the bottom of to keep your food cool.
Yeah. Right, now you deliver ice, everybody starts running. It's a different world we live in today.
And a different ice, but
yeah. Oh, that wasn't the ice you were talking about?
No, but that's good. I like it.
My bad. We'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
All God asks of you is faithfulness. Headlines in USA Today. Did you see it this morning? All the odds are against us. Faithfulness is the word.
There's a place for you on the battle line. Engage in the fight for America's families. Visit AFA.net and then take your position. A message from the American Family Association.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. President Trump delivers remarks at the NATO summit at The Hague in the Netherlands. The president says he believes peace negotiations with Iranian officials will take place soon.
We're going to talk to them next week with Iran. We may sign an agreement. I don't know. To me, I don't think it's that necessary. I mean, they had a war, they fought. Now they're going back to their world. I don't care if I have an agreement or not.
DHS announcing the arrest of several Iranian nationals who were in the U.S. illegally, as concerns of potential sleeper cells in the U.S. grows following the strikes on Iranian nuclear sites over the weekend. Brooke Taylor reporting from Dallas.
This is just in the span of 48 hours. ICE managed to arrest these illegal Iranian nationals, including a U.S. citizen, for allegedly harboring one of them. Now, these targeted operations, they took place across major cities here in Texas, New York, California, Alabama, Arizona, and Minnesota. It comes as officials are raising concerns over possible sleeper cells. So we want to dig deeper into some of these arrests. This one in Mississippi, this Iranian national arrested after ICE says the U.S. government terminated his residency in 2017 after lying on his visa application and committing possible marriage fraud.
The Department of Education claims that California is in violation of Title IX over a state law that allows boys to compete in girls' high school sports. Education Secretary Linda McMahon making that announcement today.
We are giving them 10 days to remedy that situation. We have remedy for them, but if they do not comply within 10 days, then we will refer this to the Department of Justice.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says senators are on track to vote on President Trump's big, beautiful bill by Friday. But debate over the state and local tax deduction cap and other issues rages on. Kelly Saberi has more from Capitol Hill.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent attended the Senate GOP luncheon yesterday. Bessent said the meeting was a success, putting them on track to vote for the big, beautiful bill as soon as Friday. One of the most contentious issues is SALT, and GOP senators may be changing their tone on it, saying they'll adjust the income threshold to make this happen. House Republicans tried to raise the SALT cap to $40,000, while Senate Republicans wanted to keep it at the original $10,000.
A university president is outlining many different problems with American college education.
Talking on American Family Radio, Walter Windler of West Texas A&M said that too many universities are increasingly seen as ideologically driven or biased.
And they tend to lean away from what I would consider to be conventional, traditional thought processes and lead to another side of the political spectrum.
He subsequently urged Christian parents to ensure that their children are well-grounded in their faith if they go to college.
That has to start at home. And too many of us as Christians, we expect the church to do that for us, and the church will help us. But our fundamental responsibility as parents is to, I'm going to say, reproduce our beliefs in our children.
Windler also discussed the disturbing reality that, in many cases, college is no longer preparing students for vocational work.
A lot of times that's another thing that drives cynicism. People are paying for the degrees, and then they get out and they find out that the degree has not prepared them for vocational work of any kind. If you have a job and do it well, somebody in all likelihood will pay you for it. And if you don't, or if you don't have the skills to do something of value to the general public, that's a challenge.
I'm Reed Ritter.
A family-owned farm in New Jersey has gained attention as a town government tries to seize their land. Brian Yennis is in Cranberry, New Jersey with the latest.
The Henry family has owned this 21-acre farm since 1850 in the town of Cranberry. They say that they're moving forward with a proposal to turn this farm into affordable housing. The town says they have no choice because of state law obligating every town in New Jersey to zone for its fair share of affordable housing. Andy's farm is an issue in the closely watched New Jersey governor's race. Trump-endorsed Republican nominee Jack Ciattarelli is blasting Democratic Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill. Quote, Trenton Democrats are taking the garden right out of the Garden State with mandates that force over development and bulldoze out communities.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
If we lose this cultural war, we're going to have a hedonistic, humanistic society.
Discover the story of the culture warrior Don Wildman and how he went head-to-head with Hollywood, Playboy, the homosexual agenda, and the Disney empire. The movement Don started paved the way for Christians to boldly stand for truth and righteousness in a hostile culture. Watch Culture Warrior today for free. Visit culturewarrior.movie.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. Tim here with Ed and Wesley, and now Steve Paisley-Jordahl joined us. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
Your rare short-sleeve shirt.
Yeah, okay, so this is my chili pepper shirt, and I'm wearing it in honor or because of the heat wave.
Oh, fair enough.
In honor.
And you like using chili.
And I do like chili.
You like using peppers
Yeah.
and chili and your chocolate chili.
Yeah, I do.
Chocolate chili.
Yeah, we've been here before. Remember this?
Yeah.
Have we talked about this before?
Yeah, we tried it.
I tried it at race.
Did we try it?
I
Yeah,
tried
I
it. It was
sent some in.
phenomenal. It was really
I made
good.
some and brought it in. You weren't here that day?
Nope, he was not. I took his sample.
Okay.
Oh, I guess I shouldn't judge a food by its recipe, but that doesn't sound right.
No, it didn't. I had to close my eyes. I closed my eyes and I
Chocolate
tasted
chili.
it.
Anyway, Steve has a shirt on that has a bunch of red hot chili peppers. And
For the heat wave that we were discussing.
Yep.
Were you a fan of that band, Steve?
No. The only thing I know about the Red Hot Chili Peppers is the bassist was in Back to the Future 2. He was the boss. He was the guy that talked. Oh man, all the names are escaping.
That's all right.
He's the guy that talked
Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox into doing that scam. Remember, he was watching TV, and he was on with the bassist of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who was the actor that played his buddy that wanted him to swipe your card.
Little known fact in music history.
There you go.
There, ladies and gentlemen. All right, what's your first story, Steve?
Here's the recipe. I know you guys. We've been talking about the bombing of the
what's that place?
Iran. And
is it Iran or Iran?
I think it's
Iran or Iran.
I think it's Iran.
So Iran is wrong.
I'm not sure it's wrong.
It depends on what part
Who
of the
did
country you're
that?
from.
I think Iran is the way you pronounce it.
Yeah, but they're going to
properly.
blame that on Southerners. You know they are.
Iran.
Who started
That's
calling it
the Southern
Iran?
way.
The rednecks
Iran.
did. The rednecks. Go ahead.
Listen, I'm not going to correct somebody like
Which is it, though? It's got to be
I
one
think
or
it's
the
Iran.
other.
I think
Iran.
it's Iran.
Iran, okay.
But it's one of those things where
You're gonna slip
that's
back
the way
into
you
it.
pronounce it, like in the Middle East. But then people go, well, we ain't in the Middle East. We're here.
Right.
We're pronouncing it Iran. And you know what? Go ahead.
In the Mideast. In the Mideast, not the Middle East.
Go ahead.
Mideast.
Sorry to
I
interrupt.
don't know in the Middle East.
See, now he's correcting me for saying the Middle East.
It's
just a losing.
Iran is in the Middle East.
We all need to get along here.
All right, so we've been talking about the bombing, and it is serious stuff, and there's been a whole lot of repercussions. But that's not to say that there wasn't a couple of humorous moments. I want to play you. This is our J.D. Vance, our vice president. He was talking with a Republican caucus in, I believe it was Ohio. Anyway, he tells this story, cut 13.
And the president looks over at me, puts the foreign leader on mute, and says, "This is not going very well," and he presses the red button. And And my eyes get really big, and I'm like, Mr. President, what just happened? And he looks at me and he goes, nuclear. Nuclear. And 2 minutes later, a guy walks in with a Diet Coke, and he looks back at me and he says, it wasn't nuclear, it's just the Diet Coke button. And that's... So that's the kind of guy, my fellow Republicans, that we have as the President of the United States.
Yeah.
That was Vance?
That was J.D. Vance, yeah.
That's... we were just talking about about whether he drinks Coke or Diet Coke.
Yeah.
I've never heard the words nuclear and just kidding. I've never heard that.
Especially
I've never heard that in a combination.
Especially the guy that actually has the button.
Yeah. I'm just kidding you. Just one of those scare videos I see.
Had you go in there, didn't I?
Yeah. Had you going. You might want to move your family to a shelter before I push this button.
It's just the Diet Coke button.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, that wasn't even a comedy skit. There's offhand there.
Yeah. All right. So, the trans influencer, I'm sure you all have seen him, Lily Tino. I'm kidding.
Who is it now? A trans influencer. Now, what is that exactly?
This is a dude that thinks he's a woman.
All right.
And who dresses up like a woman.
All right.
And
has a large following.
He has a large following of
all right.
deranged people. And in one of his posts, he went to Disney World. And he decided that he was going to rate all of the restrooms in the women's restrooms. So he walks into the women's restrooms with a cell phone taping in the women's restroom. Well, that's illegal, and the AG of Florida is investigating this guy. He could spend up to 5 years in prison. I don't know if it would be men's prison or women's prison. Being in Florida, it'd probably be a men's prison. But you guys are saying he picked the wrong Disney, didn't he?
Yeah, it should have been Disneyland, which is in California, but he went to Disney World, which is in Florida, and they don't do that there.
Yeah, a little different background.
How does someone not know that you shouldn't be filming You shouldn't be filming in a restroom.
I think he knows. I think he just doesn't care.
Yeah.
I'm trans. I can do whatever
Well, he's going to care now.
Yeah.
Now, I doubt he'll go to serve prison, but if they do decide to prosecute him, I don't know, that may be a felony.
Yeah.
I don't know what the law says in Florida.
I printed it out, but
Can't
then
film in a bathroom. I'm guessing that's in there.
Right.
What's that?
Yeah,
I'm guessing
film in a bathroom. Violate people's privacy.
Yeah, I actually will tell you about the.
Can't have security cameras in there either.
No,
I mean,
you can't. I mean, there could be children in there, but like you said, Steve, this is part of the trans movement. I'm not saying they're all this way, but they want everyone else to adjust their lives and their beliefs to accommodate the way they view things. So why wouldn't they say, well, I don't care if you're uncomfortable. I'm in here trying to influence.
Florida AG James Utmeyer is investigating the influencer for filming in a women's bathroom at Disney, faces 5 years in prison and a $5,000 fine under Criminal Code 810-1.
Is that for each count?
45. I would imagine.
Wow. Well, that guy stepped in it, man. If he spends time in lockup.
They are arrogant, they are deluded, and they think they're above the law because, well, I'm oppressed because I'm
yeah.
Right.
I am trans. I am trans. Hear me roar.
That's it.
I'm oppressed. That's why I'm at Disney World.
Exactly. How much
in a bathroom influencing you.
I'm oppressed. That's why I'm at Disney World. That's true. It's been forever since I've been.
Listen,
but it's expensive to go.
Yeah, in America in 2025, almost all oppression is self-inflicted.
Yeah.
It's not.
That's right.
It calls a system.
Yeah.
Maybe he's possessed.
I just don't know where he must not have a committee to review the agenda for the next day. This trans influencer guy, he must not
like a board of directors.
It must just be he
maybe pulling his own.
He just does what he
didn't check in for the Monday morning meeting.
Because you don't sit around at a meeting, a committee, and go, "Hey guys, I got this idea." Guys or gals or whatever you are.
Whatever.
I'm thinking about going to Disney World. And hear me out now. I'm going to go and rate the bathrooms, the women's bathrooms.
On video.
On video. So I'm just going to throw that idea out. And
using a phone.
Just, I'd like to have a little reaction. Let's go around the room.
Yeah.
So, do you think that happened?
Do you think that's the best way, the best use of my time?
No, I'm thinking not.
Okay, all right.
This is a guy who's hanging out with his friends.
Thinks he's a girl, Ed.
Yeah,
you're misgendering him.
I'm misgendered
on purpose.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Anyway,
next story.
It cost. Well, let me button this here.
All right.
It costs up to $189 per day for a one park pass, depending on what time of year you're buying.
$189 a day.
$189.
You're not oppressed. To Tim's point,
right?
You're not oppressed if you can afford that. Just throw away money so you can have photos taken with Prince Eric in the Little Mermaid exhibit.
Yes.
I just came up with that at the top of my head.
It sounded so good.
All right, I think we need to move on.
Let's move on. You might want to move on from this too. Did President Trump released all the documents surrounding the JFK assassination? I think.
Whatever happened to that?
Well, not much, except if you listen to Marjorie Taylor Greene, she has a theory. She has gotten.
She's the congresswoman. A Republican congresswoman from Georgia.
From Georgia, and she's gotten into a little spat with Mark Levin over the bombing of Iran. Mark Levin thinking that it was a good idea to go in and stop Iran from having a nuclear weapon. Marjorie Taylor Greene thinking, oh no, we're getting into a forever war and World War III is coming. And so Levin happened to say to her, he tweeted out to her, MTG, you are stupid, and you keep banging your head against the wall. Thankfully, POTUS ignored you and hit the Iranian nuclear missile sites. You seem very upset about it. I'm not going away. You're on my radar. To which she responded with a long post. Mark, you have the exact same tone and language as the psychopaths use that send me death threats every single day. And then she says, let me introduce you to my friend Jesus. He said, blessed are the peacemakers. Jesus is the Messiah. Jesus is the one and only Son of God, she says. He was put to death on a Roman cross. He will return one day, and he will bring everlasting peace on earth. He also said, pray for your enemies, so I will do my best to pray for you. Okay, so she witnessed to him a bit. And then she says, there was once a great president that the American people loved. He opposed Israel's nuclear program, and then he was assassinated. So I don't know where she was reading in the documents that were released, but apparently JFK was assassinated because he opposed Israel's nuclear ambitions.
Well, this is a new idea. Now I've heard it over the last year, but I'd never heard it before that. This is relatively new that the Israelis were responsible for the assassination of JFK. I've heard that the mafia did it, the CIA did it, the lone wolf did it, that there was more than one, that the Cubans did it, and now the Israelis are. First of all, I think Chris Woodward said this when we went over this story in our story meeting, or maybe it was you, Steve, I don't remember. I'm not sure it's the best idea to try to witness to someone.
It was Chris.
But you started off by calling someone names.
Yeah.
Whatever she called him. That doesn't seem to open the door of his heart.
What'd she call him?
She said, Mark, you had the exact same tone and language as the psychopaths. Use that send me to death threats in a single day. You should be fired from Fox News and shame on Fox.
Ed, for witnessing purposes, you don't think that's a good idea?
I don't call someone a psychopath. I hope you get fired. But let me tell you about the love of Jesus. Okay. Now she's a congresswoman. She's free to do whatever she wants. But listen. What do you guys? I have no idea. I don't think the Israelis were responsible for the assassination of JFK any more than I think that certain world leaders are reptiles.
Don't you?
Reptile.
All right,
aliens.
listen. What we're arguing. Those are two conservatives right there.
Yeah,
solidly so.
Yes,
their records show that, right?
Yes.
So it's a shame they're in a fight like that, but it is what it is. And I hate when it gets ugly and personal, and it certainly does today in the world of instant response and social media. It's just like, can you not sit on something for 24 hours before you feel the need just to
not if you're wanting to get people to follow you.
I know. Well, they're
trapped by that paradigm.
Right? They want to watch their numbers go up.
Yeah.
She might need the same board of directors the influencer isn't using. The transfer.
Right. Right. But anyway, but what I would say would be, I understand both sides. Marjorie Taylor Greene represents the part of the MAGA movement, or not necessarily just the Make America Great movement. She doesn't represent it all. But there are people on the left who also subscribe to don't get us involved in foreign wars anymore.
Right.
We're tired of Iraq and Afghanistan. America does. We need to pull back and realize we don't have to police the world.
And we need money spent here.
And I understand that.
Yeah.
And I sympathize with that for the most part.
Yeah, me too.
But people like Mark Levin, who is a Jew, and seeing what's happening between Iran and Israel, they go, well, this is a threat to not only millions of Jews in Israel, but also Iran is a threat to the world.
Right, largest sponsor of terrorism.
Yes, so they need to be stopped. Right. And we, the United States and Israel, we have the capability to do so.
Right.
So use it. What's it there for? So but people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others, Thomas Massey and others, were worried that this is going to get us into another foreign war that we're not going to be able to get out of. And I don't think the comparisons are even.
No. Next week we won't be talking about it.
Yeah. So a one-off strike like what happened here does not represent Operation Desert Storm.
Well, right. and the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, if you think the numbers I mentioned earlier, so President Trump in this term has dropped 36 bombs, and Obama dropped 30,000 in his tenure. And so, I mean, there's
30,000, really, like drones and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So if you look at the number, my point is we're nowhere even near the number of.
Right, I know. And it's not.
We didn't have the same conversation. No, in fact, I didn't even care when Obama was dropping bombs on terrorist sites.
I remember when we did that in Libya.
Good for you.
Remember we struck in Libya without congressional authorization?
That's one area we can agree with President Obama at the time on. Good job for you, So
next story, Steve.
I just want to say that if Israel was responsible for JFK, it would have been like the cigarette lighter in the limousine blowing up, not something so ordinary as a gunshot, given the operation.
With the
Pager, yeah. Grim beeper, they call that operation. I want to tell you that the United States and Israel are very, 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 very bad at genocide. Because that's what we're being accused of, right? Israeli genocide in Gaza.
Yeah.
Israel, if they really wanted to, they're doing a really bad job of it if they wanted to exterminate the Palestinian people. And one of the proofs that they're not is that they are providing $30 million in aid to a group called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which goes into Gaza to distribute food. Now, Hamas was working with the UN, or the UN was working with Hamas to send aid in, and Hamas would take it and hold it hostage, use it for its own purposes and hold it hostage. Now they've got this group that is not connected to Hamas or the UN, and reports are that Hamas is actually shooting some of the aid people that are distributing the aid.
Why?
Just because they don't want their people, because they are fundamentally against their own people.
They want Israel to look as bad as possible and be able to blame, I'm guessing, blame starving kids on Israel.
Yeah.
So they can't do that if the kids are fed.
Yeah.
Well, that is evil on a whole nother scale.
So anyway, the U.S. is providing aid to everybody, all you college PhDs out there that are protesting on campus about Free Palestine and the genocide. United States is providing $30 million of food to the Palestinian people in Gaza.
The term genocide this doesn't even fit the definition of genocide. Genocide is when a a group of people are attacked for their ethnicity.
For the purpose of annihilation.
Yeah.
Yes, or like you could say the genocide in World War II with the concentration camps for the Jews. Hitler and the Nazis were trying to kill all the Jews. Okay. In the case of the Gaza war in Israel, between Hamas and Israel, if the Israelis were involved in genocide, they would be attacking all Arabs. It would just be a war against Arabs.
Right.
Well, 20% of the population of Israel itself is made up of Arabs. I know I've had many friends over the years living in Israel who are Arabs. Israel doesn't target them for death.
Right.
Yeah, and
so
also
it's a political and struggle down there, an ideological struggle. Israel's not committing acts of genocide. So go ahead.
Right, and also genocide is usually doesn't need to have been provoked. It's an ideology that you just live out year round. It doesn't change. But everything that they're doing here is in response of what took place.
Also good
in October of 2023.
Even if you could limit the genocide to say it's just we want genocide on the Palestinian people, it would be a lot easier to just flat out drop bombs on hospitals and schools where Hamas is hiding behind its citizens and using them as human shields and claim that.
That's right.
Yeah, but no, they went in house by house at the great cost in Israeli soldiers' lives. And they went in to try to protect the civilians and get the bad.
That's another good point.
The left on this issue just uses the word genocide because it's appalling to hear that, because we've all seen examples of this in world history. So next story, Steve. By the way, let me tell folks you're listening to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and Steve. Wesley, if people want to download this show, a podcast like you and Ed do, how can they do that?
Go to afr.net. afr.net. There's a tab at the top that says podcast. You cannot download it from there, but you can listen to it from there. But if you're wanting to download the app,
does it download every day? Can you set it up to automatically download every day? And I know I'm asking a question I know the answer to, but.
Yeah, well, what we do, our staff here at AFR, we upload our radio programs after the show's up within a couple hours, and so it's on our website at afr.net/podcast. Now you can go to once you're there, you can go to there's tabs that go to Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts. There's other places where you can actually download it and hold it, but otherwise, I would go to afr.net.
All right. Well, nothing else to talk about, so let's go to music. Cut 11.
I'm taking the shade out of the sun. Whatever made me think that I was number one. I ought to know. Easy come, easy go.
If that isn't a feel-good song, I don't know what it is.
That is Bobby Sherman. Who passed away on the 24th? What's that? Yesterday.
Probably last night because I didn't.
He was like a poster child for the 60s and 70s pop culture.
I mentioned in our story meeting this morning, my sister, who's roughly 1 year younger than me, she had a Bobby Sherman poster up in her bedroom. He was one of those heartthrobs, probably in Tiger Beat magazine, and had those kind of feel
along with Leif Garrett.
Yeah, and Donny Osmond.
The Osmonds. But so Tim mentioned it and mentioned this song, which I got to be honest, I had not heard that song
at all.
I had not heard that song at all, but I did look up when I went back to my office. Bobby Sherman and Julie, Do You Love Me was on there, and that was. I love that song.
So
junior high school, I guess.
I was very traveled in 50s rocks and 60s pop as a young man. I mean, back in the day. And I remember Bobby Sherman. I could tell you he was a huge heartthrob, but I could not find a single song of his that I recognized.
You don't remember Julie, Do You Love Me?
I'll have to listen to it.
Yeah.
I'll go back and listen to it.
I just know the dude had some serious hair.
Yes, he did. He had that 70s hair, not like the rock and roll band.
Right. I mean,
hard
thick hair. So
who are we talking about again?
Bobby Sherman.
You wouldn't. It's not important to your life.
Michael Jackson could have been up on a girl's wall before he was white.
And on that note, we'll end the show today. Send all your emails and comments to Steve Jordahl.
I had to take a second to figure that one out. You are on your own, son.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for listening.